My name is Marissa Scott. I am the director of the American Cultural Center here in Niamey, Niger. I am also the spokesperson for the U.S. Embassy in Niger. I think the biggest thing that stands out about media in Niger is that much of the core is volunteer. So you don't get this background of professionalized journalists who are getting paid their value and paid their worth. And we're finding this to be a really big problem. So that's hindering us from getting quality productions from journalists, whether that's in the area of broadcast media or in print media. So what the U.S. Embassy has been trying to do is to spend our resources wisely on bringing folks in who either have language skills or who have the technical know-how, like the Global Media Project, to be able to come in and do training, do workshops to really help to professionalize the level of media in Niger. I have to say that if we say that media itself, it's difficult to do media in Niger. I think that's a factual statement. That it's a lot more factual when you're dealing with folks who are in the interior and who are not in the larger cities. So not just the capital, larger cities like Zinder, like Maradi, like Agadez in the north. As soon as you get away from those areas, you're really dealing with a vacuum of not just media that's untrained, but media that's non-existent. So if there are no community radios, if there are no folks on the ground who are capturing the experiences of the people who live in those rural areas, folks don't know about them. And either people have to come from Niamey or from some of the other larger cities to be able to capture that. So there really is a void, but I think the U.S. government and other international partners are helping out. So it's not just us, it's also the EU, it's also the UN. Within the US government, we have USAID, who has the Peace Through Development program, and they're doing a lot of rural community radio programs. So there are ways that we're trying to address this, but Niger is a country of 17 million people. And they say by 2050, those numbers are gonna jump to 50 million. There's a lack now. If you look at those numbers and you look at the demographics, it will be staggering in the next 20 or 30 years where those numbers are going to be. Women are not well represented here. I like to use the book Women Are Half of the Sky to be a big example about how important women are to the community in Niger. But I don't think that the government, civil society to some point, don't really understand how important that message is. If you neglect half a population, there is no way that a country can prosper. It just can't happen. So it's really important to bring up the literacy rates for women. Only 15% of women in Niger are literate. That says a lot about a country. If you look at those, just the sheer facts and the demographics. So Niger has to work on building that up and practicing what they preach. The laws are on the books. They're there. Girls are supposed to get compulsory education up until the age of 15 or 16. But when you're dealing with areas that are in the bush or in the rural communities, some families find it more effective to have their daughters get married earlier because there's a dowry involved, and that's one less mouth to feed. Again, it's not just the government doing the numbers, but individual families are doing the numbers too. So if there are a less amount of girls who are getting their education, that means that there's also a smaller amount of young women who are aspiring to be communicators, who are aspiring to be broadcast journalists, or in any field related to the media. I think the biggest thing that Americans in particular can take back here is that, Niger is its own country. The first thing we educate people on is not Nigeria. That's the first thing we have to say it's not Nigeria. But also that there's a story here, and there are several stories that are meant to be told. So rather than hearing the same old, Niger is at the bottom of the Human Development Index, and Niger is not this, Niger is not that. Let's look at some of the success stories that are happening here. There are women in leadership. There are women who are involved in parliament. There are more than 5,000 civil society organizations in Niger. A lot of people don't know that. Countries like Algeria have less than 100. So, you have this country that's the largest in West Africa. A lot of people don't know that either. That is essentially in this area. I want to make sure the camera catches this. Yes, that you have Niger that's in this area that is becoming a void and a vacuum. So you have what we're calling the arc of instability around Niger. So you have countries like Algeria, like Libya, like Chad, and Nigeria to the south that are really encircling Niger, and there are problems coming from all sides. So the Nigerians understand their role in the region, and they may not be an economic hegemon, but they are a tolerant country. They are a peaceful nation, a fledgling democracy since 2010, but they are still a democracy. And that's something that a lot of people seem to forget when they're thinking about Niger in the world context. And that's how the U.S. government sees them. We see Nigerians as real partners in the area of counterterrorism. And I mention counterterrorism because it's an area related to messaging and media. And that is where Shakal and Boko Haram and ISIL and all of these people are outdoing us because they're getting the messaging across. So we're trying to counter those narratives by creating our own messages, our own programs. And if we can help train young women, young men too, to be able to really create their own messages as it relates to democracy, to governance, to advancing peace and democracy in their country, it will be a success. I have to use maybe something from Martin Luther King, who said, "To be great is to serve." And this country is filled with people who love Niger. I say that, but I really want to couch that into some clear numbers. There are close to about 1,000 American expats who live in Niger. Many of them have been here for 10, for 15, for 25, for 35 years because they love this country, and they want to see it succeed, and they want to be here when that happens. So even though, there may be a little shaking up here, there may be some protests, there may be some events that happen that makes the world think that Niger is going backwards. That's really not the case. I don't know of any case where there hasn't been a little bit of chaos and a little bit of trouble before major advancements come. And I really hope that that's the space that Niger is in. So my message would be to use that little bit of chaos to really make a creative move into what the future is going to be for Niger. Because the young people are here. They're the ones that are going to have to do it. They are 70% of the population. And if we're not addressing them and they're not addressing these issues, it won't happen.